Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Thank you for tuning in today. I greatly appreciate everyone who listens, and I just want to send my gratitude before we get started. Okay, today, my dog's already crying, so bear with me. We'll see how this goes. Um, we are currently in some energies that are associated with the nine, which in numerology is all about endings and celebration, like completion. And that can be really exciting for some people, and it can be really intimidating for others, and just kind of like, what is happening? So I definitely wanted to touch on the energy today, but I want to uh just kind of provide some context on how this might be showing up in your life, even if you're not in tune with everything that's going on in astrology or numerology or anything, right? Maybe you're just tuning in. So I want to talk about this need, this journey, this story that we all go through that ultimately requires us to celebrate and to complete these chapters and then start new ones. And, there are some in our life that are like, we don't even think about. And some are because of society, some are because of our cultures, and some, our family traditions. And there may be these areas of our life, these seasons of our life that we complete and we celebrate. And it is this huge thing. And we know that this next chapter is something different. So we can think of things like different school transitions and graduations, whether that's high school for you. Some people, you make that big celebration transition in between each school. And even with like moving, in like some cultures, we celebrate different ages, and we have different like becoming becoming an adult, right? So we think about all these things that we are intentionally completing and celebrating, and then moving on to the next chapter. And there is this shift in energy, right? I remember like that feeling of completing high school, and I mean, even completing college too. There's just like this finality, right? Like that is what it is. And we get to move on. And so I want to provide how we can use that sort of clarity with things that we want to move on from in our everyday life and the different seasons we might be moving through, and just kind of think about, okay, what is lingering that we might need to complete in order to fully step into this new beginning. And so much has been coming up around this where I'm like, okay, I need to talk about this because this is something that I really feel like I thrive with for the most part. Obviously, there are times where I'm like, what is going on? And I realize, okay, there's some things lingering. There's some things that maybe I just wasn't aware of that I was holding on to, and it's holding me back from really stepping into this new beginning. So we're going to talk about all this, but I really first just want to share the story of numerology. And it's not very different from like the story of tarot. Like there's so many parallels to like the journey that we are here to experience. And I want to point it out through numerology because we are all going through our own cycle of this, and the, collective, universal collective is going through its own cycle of this. And so being aware of like, okay, what is this story? What is this journey? And know that there's like multiple ones going on at the same time, but it can really help you work with that energy and just understand it as you are working through endings and starting new. Because I need to stop talking and run on sentences. I know that's a thing, and if you listen to this podcast, I know you know. But this month, November, if you're listening in November, we are in a 9-month collective universal 9-month. And which the 9 essentially is for, that closing, that completion, and then celebration of that. And so that's where we are. And then the next month, December, is going to be a 1 month. So just so you know where we are. But as far as like the whole story, we want to think about 1 to 9. Okay, so numerology, we do 1 to 9. And 1 is really like new beginnings, right? There's that curiosity. There's like, I'm willing to try something new. Like, what's calling me to create? Like, what's calling me to start? And really like kind of that novice energy. Like, I'm new at this. Like, what's gonna come my way? And it can be really exciting. Some people love that energy, and some people really thrive with that, and some people like have more fear around that, or maybe have some limiting beliefs around what that might mean or what that could play out to mean. So that's the 1. New beginnings. The 2 is partnership and like working together. Like, it's really, this could be partnership with like other humans, this could be partnership as in like intimate partnership, this could be business partnership, this can be like spiritual, like it could be partnership in any way, really, like partnership with your business, working together, right? Like, it's not like you're not alone. And really trusting that like you can be supported in whatever way you want through partnership. And then 3, so you see there's kind of like this journey of like, okay, you need to like your curiosity, right? Like, you're gonna figure out these, whether it's like these ideas coming to you, what like these new ideas, these things that you want to step into. And 2 is like, okay, who can you lean on? Who can you do this with? Like, who's gonna be by your side? And maybe it's not a person, maybe it's some resources, maybe it's a program, right? Like, whatever. Partnership. The next number is 3, and this is all about like communication and self-expression. So as you are moving along this journey, like, you're finding the importance of expressing yourself, of being able to communicate what your needs are, what you need depended on for, like, what you're able to offer other people. And having that ability to express yourself is really going to start laying down for the next number, which is like having that solid foundation. Like, you are aware of what you're bringing to the table, you're aware of what you're stepping into now, and you know, like, the partnership, who's supporting you. And so what does that foundation actually look like, and setting that in stone. And there's like kind of this like get to work energy with the 4. And so it's like, okay, we have this clarity of what we got, so now let's get to work and set a solid foundation. Okay. The 5 is adaptability and change. So the 5 is like, okay, we have all this knowledge and this foundation, and now we're able to adapt. We're able to say, okay, this isn't quite working, so we're going to do it this way. Or, you know what, we actually don't like this, so we're going to change our mind and go this route. And having that adaptability really comes up in that 5. The 6 is really about home life and relationships, creating like that sacred space for you, and really like that environment, right? It's really environment, and creating that space for you to have that energy across the board. Whether you're like, as we're talking about numerology, like, what's coming up? Is it more like your home life? Is it your personal life? It doesn't matter, because it's all connected. And so the 6 is about your relationships and how that's affecting your well-being, and how this can really like expand your experience here, right? Like, our relationships is really what influences our experience. So really expanding into that with the 6. The 7 is self-reflection. It's really like a more of a spiritual, internal, reflecting kind of energy. And it's where we have like that time and that space to reflect, to gain that wisdom of what we are experiencing. And really, that's like the step that allows us to become the authority. Because the next one is this abundance and expansion. 8 is abundance. And thinking about, okay, I had this reflection, I've gained the wisdom from this experience. I'm still on this path, of course, but like, now I know like this journey is an abundant journey, because I am reaping the benefits in more than one way. And you are able to recognize that through the reflection of the 7 month, or the energy of the 7. So the 8 is abundance, and really just kind of like recognizing like, oh, this is what I have, what's available to me, and feeling that. And then the 9 is celebration. Really recognizing, that whole journey and seeing like what is ready to close, like what is closing, what is complete in my life. And wherever that is, know that like that's where you're creating space for that new beginnings with the 1 when we start over, right? So the cycles go 1 through 9, and then you start over again at 1. And that is the energy that we're constantly shifting through. Okay. So like in the years, like if you look at your personal year, you're going 1 through 9, and then you're going to start back at 1. And then like the months are the same way. So that's why we're in a 9-month right now for November. And then December, we're going to have a 1 month. And it's different for your personal year. I'm not going to go into explanation. I'm going to tag or link, Caitlin Carehart is her name, and she is the person I go to for numerology. I've purchased her planners and her blueprint so you can figure out everything you need to know. But also on her Instagram, she breaks down like how to figure out all the numerology things. So I'm just going to refer her to you, because that is where all that knowledge that just came out of my brain came basically from her. So yeah, speaking, I wanted to like preface this. I've talked about numerology before. So if that was kind of like a repeat for you, I thank you for listening. But I wanted to preface that because this really is the energy that we're in. And like this you don't have to be conscious of this energy to experience it. You have like, we're all in a 9 month, whether you know it or not. And so there is this energy of things that are ready to be complete. Like, what is ready to be complete? It's kind of like, okay, now is the time to tie up the ends, right? Like, now's the time to complete things, because it is intentionally creating space for the new beginnings. And this is like that idea of, okay, like, are you ready? Like, that this thing could end. Like, this thing is expired in your life, right? Like, you know that. Now's a good energy to act on that. And if you aren't aware of things that like sometimes we get these ideas of like the new beginnings before things are completed, and it can be a little bit overwhelming for some, and you're like, I don't have time or energy or space for that. And you're like, where could I start something new? And so like you just don't ever start anything new because you keep committing to all the things that you're just used to committing to. So this is where we really want to be intentional of like, okay, if something is sparking my joy, if something is like getting my interest, and I'm like, I really want to do that, it is a disservice to not make space for that. And like, why would I ignore what I want? So being intentional and like paying attention, like, what do I want to do? And what am I committing to that I don't want to do, that maybe I can shift around? Maybe I can complete it. Maybe it can be delegated, whatever. But for the sake of this episode, I want to talk about completion, because there are things that can definitely linger that we're like, I'm done with that project, that belief, that phase, whatever it may be, that identity, that relationship, that job, right? Like anything could end. Whatever it is, are you completing it, or are you saying, I'm now going to put my energy over here, so that's done? And this is where I might have a different opinion on this than some people, but like, I don't think that's enough for a lot of things. Sometimes, yes, maybe. Like, I think sometimes your focus can definitely be a completion, but like if it's something that you have been committing to, and you just decide one day to move your focus over here, I guarantee your energy is still pulling you in this direction of what you were previously committing to, because resonance, right? Like that is where you have been giving it. And if it's still sitting there, if like the cords haven't been cut, like, if you haven't completed that, haven't celebrated that part of your life, haven't said thank you, haven't had that gratitude moment of whatever that is, your energy's still moving towards it. It's just how it is. That is why I don't think I'm gonna go there. What I was gonna say, I was gonna go into some relationships, and that's why, like, when we leave a partner and we don't, like, reflect and have that gratitude for what was, even if it was a bad breakup, like, our energy is still leaking towards them for as long as it you allow it. And I could get into that, but we're not right now. So as far as, like, completing things, there's this energy to complete because really, like, energetically, what we want to set ourselves up for is the ability to have these cycles work for us. So it's not saying like you need to end things that you enjoy doing, you need to end things that completely light you up. It's not even saying there's something physical that you need to end. I mentioned just a little bit ago, like, this could be a belief, this could be a habit, right? This could be something bigger, like some of the things I mentioned before, but it doesn't have to be so obvious. It could be something a little bit more abstract, like the way you talk to yourself, the way you respond to people. It could be anything. So pay attention and know that, like, if things are coming up for you, then this is a good time to just kind of assess, like, how is this serving me? How am I interacting with this energy in my life right now? Is it in alignment with who I want to be, who I am? Is it in alignment with what I want to begin? So, like I said, this is oftentimes, as a manifesting generator, I imagine this is like a thing for us, but others too can probably relate to it, because I often get so excited about things that, like, I could start that, I love, because I love new things. I love change. So, like, the idea of starting something new, I don't have a lot of fear around that. But, like, I'll get so excited that I just kind of, like, drop everything and, like, move my focus, like I was saying before. And I don't really think about, like, bringing all my energy with me because I'm so excited. And I've really learned this lesson of, like, okay, love the excitement. And that's a great indicator for a sacral being. Like, if you're really feeling pulled to something, like, pay attention to that, right? Like, that's following your bliss. That is responding. And I want to talk about getting in alignment with your strategy and how this can clear up some of the, like, what is ready to be completed, and where is that space to really have new beginnings, because I think that's where a lot of the fear is with new beginnings, is that the lack mindset around space, energy, time, right? So I'm going to talk about that, but I myself tend to, like, get so excited about new beginnings that I don't always end things. I don't always complete things fully. And then I find myself all in this new thing and I'm like, wait, like, I got to slow down a little bit and pause. Sometimes I have to just stop and I'm like, I need to tie up these loose ends. And that's literally what it is. Like, it could be physical stuff, it could be conversations, it could be getting rid of stuff, or it could be like literal cord cutting, energetic cord cutting. And having the awareness of, like, what do I feel? What do I need? Like, I know I'm so excited about this, but why am I actually exhausted? Like, why don't I have the energy for it? And there's always going to be something else pulling you. And I've talked about, like, the energetic inventory before, where you just look at everything you give your time and energy to, and you assess, like, is this lighting me up? Is this draining me? Is this a yes or a no? If you're a sacral being, and be really honest with yourself, and then decide, okay, what can be completed? What can be delegated? What do I want to continue? And that's a tough exercise for somebody who hasn't taken the time to do that. And to be honest, on top of that, that can be intimidating. I'll just put that out there. But to do that, and then it's really taking your power back. It is claiming what you have. You're like, you know what? I own that. This is what I commit to. Even if it's sitting on my bed for an hour every day, thinking about all the things I have to do, I'm going to write that down and own it. And then I'm going to decide I'm not going to do that for an hour. and I'm going to decide what I'm going to do. And whatever I'm deciding I'm doing is in alignment with what I want to call in, like what I want to manifest, what I want to start, that version of myself that is already doing the thing that I want to start. And that's how you start shifting these daily behaviors. And things can feel complete. Things actually are completing because you're showing up in a new energy. That like the energy that you were committing to the old thing, like literally isn't there to go there anymore because it's new energy. You're alchemizing your energy to create a new timeline. Like that's essentially what you're doing, but you're alchemizing your energy to then pour into this new thing. And it's not automatically trying to pull you back to this old thing. This is also something you can be really aware of if you're trying to break bad habits. So I hope that visual kind of makes sense, right? Like if something is complete, we can think about, this is an easy one, like graduating college or graduating high school. You might not do this consciously, but you think about, okay, I've committed to this schedule, this routine for this long, and now I don't have that. After this day, I will have a different schedule. Maybe you're starting a job, like starting a different career, and you're going to be working, or maybe you're going to start your business, and you know what I mean? Like you do think about this, right? Like, because that's monumental things in our life. Or like moving, and you're like, I know my life is going to be different once we move. Maybe you're moving by the beach and you're like, I know every day I'm going to wake up and I'm going to go to the beach, and that's going to change my life. It's going to change my routine, right? Like to me, that sounds like an amazing change, but not everyone like will fully process that. But when we think about these bigger changes in our life, we do have that time and that kind of preparation to visualize ourselves in these new identities, these new environments, in these new lifestyles. So when we're wanting to change something in our daily life, like take the time to say, well, what am I going to be doing if I no longer have this belief? What am I going to be doing if I'm no longer committing to TV 3 hours every night? Like visualize that. So you have these neural pathways to to establish these neural pathways to create this like in your reality, right? Like, so if you aren't thinking about what you want to do besides watching TV, then your neural pathways are going to automatically like send you to watch TV, like out of habit and routine. Unless you say, let's do something else, or we have these other options, and choosing another option is going to start making those pathways actually light up for you. So, wow. That was kind of a tangent, I feel like, because maybe not, I don't know. I always enjoy that. I feel the need to go back and re-listen to my episode and in hopes that it makes sense, and it always does. So I'm going to trust myself that time that it does. Go with that. But all of this to say, I don't know, like I feel like all of that is helpful to know, just to like be on the awareness of like what is outdated in my life. And if you're listening to this, like you are probably self-aware, but you want to think about those, maybe not self themes if you're familiar with human design, but any like reoccurring emotion. For me, it's like frustration and anger. Like if I'm overly frustrated, like in general, like for a longer period of time, not like one thing just made me frustrated, like that is my number one sign that I need to just slow down and pay attention. And then I'll kind of go through like, what am I doing? Like, what have I been committing to? Like, did I just scroll on my phone for 4 hours? Well, no wonder, like, I'm a little, so like I pay attention to these things. And if you are familiar with like the energy available and you're like, okay, there's these things in my life that I really want to start. Okay. Have you thought about what is ready to be complete in your life? And if nothing's coming up, like don't stress. I don't want you to like stress about this and be like, I have to complete something before I start something new. Like that's not the message at all. But we do want to be intentional of like, okay, what energy am I putting into this new and exciting thing? Is it my last straw? Is that all I have to give to that? Maybe it is. Okay, let's be intentional with that. How can that serve me? How can I, and if it doesn't serve me, like, how can I move things around? And being intentional with like new things coming into your life, where are you going to put that in your priorities? That's like one thing I try to tell people is like, I'm manifesting generator. I love all the things. I like lots of things light me up, but I have to be intentional with my priorities of like what is most important right now in my life. What is most like what are my top things that I'm working on this week, this month? And those change. And but like I also have people in my life that remind me of consistency and like structure because I lack the natural kind of logical structure of things sometimes. So that's where you just kind of learn, like what energy am I working with? What's available to me, and be more like this is really what this podcast is all about, but like be more intentional of like where your energy is going as you're shifting in these like and like transition periods of your life, these endings and beginnings. And I mean, like it's never ending, right? Like the reason I told the numerology kind of timeline is because this doesn't stop. Like we don't stop closing chapters and starting new ones. And I want to, normalize this process for us. It doesn't have to be stressful. It doesn't have to be over emotional all the time. I mean, like, if the emotions are needed to complete chapters, like, please do that. Like, that's needed, right? But the more you kind of go through this, like, it is a lifestyle. It is something that I am very familiar with. And some of the fears that have come up, over the years, just kind of like embracing this. Like I know there's a lot of opinions of like, why are you always looking for something to fix or heal? And I don't really respond to that question because I don't. That would be exhausting. But I think what gets confused with me in that kind of question is like I am somebody that like I am just really picky on like how I'm living my life because I don't want to continue living my life in a certain way with certain things or habits or people or careers or beliefs that aren't evolving with me. Like I love growing and expanding, and so like I have to keep up with that because I want to. Like that's how I operate best. Like it does not serve me to like not decide when something's outdated or when something changes. And as a manifesting generator, I've said that so many times this episode, I feel like I am skipping on a CD or something, but I guess maybe this is an episode for manifesting generators too, because, I really am here to like be brutally honest when something needs to end. Like when something is no longer for me, when I change my mind, like I have to be honest. And I have tried to not. I've tried to just kind of like see if I can push through. I mean, I've done it and it affects me. I mean, and then it ultimately affects my reality and my relationships and everything. But like, it starts with me when it's like, if I'm not being honest with what it is that I want, eventually it's going to catch up to me. And so instead of this thought of like, why am I always like thinking about what isn't right? I'm not necessarily doing that. I am more in the sense thinking about where am I giving my energy and do I still want to give it there? Because I mean, I've caught myself on autopilot far too many times. And maybe okay, so maybe maybe that's kind of like a fear of mine is like going on autopilot for too long. Because I think autopilot, like there are times where that serves us, especially in our different roles. To be on autopilot like 24/7, like no, but like I understand the need for that at certain times. But I really don't like it for me. Because I really this is a I feel like I'm just kind of pouring my heart out to you all today. So I hope you're also gaining something from this. But I where was I even going with that? I am somebody who I like to be present. I like to know like what's going on, and I don't like to miss things. And so of course I get caught with the stress and anxiety at times of like, what happened or what's going to happen. But I find myself in the present moment a lot. And it I was gonna connect this to the last thing I was saying, but it's not connecting anymore. But essentially it allows me to see like things that aren't right for me right then, because I'm not thinking about how fun it was yesterday. I'm not thinking about how fun it was when I was a kid. Like I often think about right now. And and so sometimes that can get me kind of like changing my mind a lot. And as a manifesting generator, I didn't always have the space or the capacity to do that. And now as an adult and experimenting with that and like giving myself permission to change my mind and finding myself and communities and spaces and relationships where they might not understand all the time, but they accept when, you know what, we're doing something different. And it's taught me a lot about informing and communication, honestly. And this year is a personal year 3 for me. And so it's been a lot of advocating for things that like need to change, that need to be complete, and saying what I need for that, and saying where I want to put this energy. I haven't observed this in the past until this year of like how quickly your energy wants to be claimed. And this isn't like intentional by anyone by any means. But I've noticed like when I shift things in my schedule how quickly like people ask to do things. People there will be assumptions made even about like what I'm doing with my time. And it's just so interesting how quickly that happens. And if you're not paying attention, like you can complete something and something else will jump right in before you even take a step into that new beginning that you want. So that is why you kind of want that intention. And when something is exciting and expanding your aura, like what is it? And be intentional of like not like keeping an eye on that, but like, okay, if this is exciting, like what are you doing with that? Like, are you just moving on and saying like one day I'll get there? Or are you saying like, I want to do that? And other things start popping up, right? Like things, synchronicities to help support that is available to you, right? Because if you see something that you like, that you want, it's because it's available to you. Simple, right? So things will start showing up for you if you're like, oh, I want that. Okay. This is where the intention starts to come in. Is like hold that focus, because there's going to be a ton of other things. This is like going into manifestation, but like there's going to be other things that pop up that are going to be like close to that. It's going to be like almost, and it will even pop up before you start like before things that need to be completed start completing. So then like you'll grab onto that, and then you'll still have this other stuff that's outdated. And then that other thing that you actually want is just out there. So it's where you're really intentional of like, okay, that's what I want. What's it feel like? What's it gonna be like? And that's really where like you start looking at houses, like it's like where you start dreaming of like, okay, what's it gonna look like when I start this new beginning? And that's where we set the intention of I am ready to end things that are no longer going to support who I am, my identity, as I step into this new beginning. That might not be anything that you recognize that's tangible, and maybe it is, or maybe it's very clear, or maybe it shows up as you're starting to step into this. It's not black and white, right? That's why before I was like, I'm making this clear. You don't have to end something just to start something, but the energy that is available right now, I mean, that's all the time, but specifically right now, is that completion, that celebration, and then shifting into creating space for that new beginning. So yeah. Okay. I want to touch on one last thing to kind of help bring in the context for how this might be showing up for you, or where this might not be so clear for you. If you might be operating in a way that isn't in alignment with your energetic aura. I know I just spit out so much there, but trust me on this. Okay. I really believe that as things get kind of cloudy and things might not be so like obvious to you, like this whole episode, if you're like, I don't even know if I need to start something new, that's fine. That's fine. And if you don't think that anything needs to end, that is okay too. Just know that at some point things are ending and things are beginning in your life. So this will make sense. This will be applicable. But the way that I notice, like I'm able to kind of be flexible, be malleable with this energy, this type of alchemization in our life, is operating from a way that like makes sense for my energy. And to know my energy is to know that I'm here to respond because my aura is expanding. And if I'm responding to things that are essentially lighting me up or like giving me more energy, it's expanding my aura. So it serves me to pay attention. That's why probably a lot of times my message is to pay attention, because I find the value so much of paying attention and like seeing what am I here to respond to? Because if I'm always trying to force something or start something, I'm not necessarily noticing the things that are over here. Like if I'm so busy like forcing something to begin over here, I might not even see what's happening over here and what might actually be for me. So that's something important. And like I will notice times in my life if like I just feel like I'm forcing this. Like it's not like I'm doing anything specific that's like, no, don't do that. There's no like hard rules, but it's an energetic thing. It is like, am I pushing too hard for this? Like, where can I create more ease for myself in this area? I know that's a big thing. Like it shouldn't be easy, but I disagree. Like I have a different opinion, because I don't think everything is quote unquote easy, but I don't think things that you desire are to be forced. And so I feel like at times I find myself in this kind of like forcing energy, and like that's just an indicator for me. I'm like, this is not the path for me, because I don't want to force anything, because then that energy is in whatever that is, right? Like, so if I'm forcing something to come to me, then that forceful energy is the connection. So I just pay attention to it. I am human. So of course there are times where I'm impatient, there are times where things don't make sense. And I'm like, why can't I just have it right here? And so I do get in that kind of, I need it now, forceful energy. But you just use those as indicators as where to bounce back, where to shift your energy. And like if I'm sitting here worried about like why hasn't it come yet, that's a whole other episode. But it really is a matter of surrendering to like what is calling your attention and then having that discernment. So yeah, I talked a little bit about manifesting generators, and generators, we have that expanding aura. So we're here to respond. Manifestors, you're here to initiate. And that's really where, you're not focused on what everyone else is doing or what everyone else thinks you should do. That it really is like, if as a manifester, I'm getting my book. As a manifester, if you get caught up with like what you should be doing, what other people need, what other people are doing, then you might find yourself like meeting your not self theme, which is anger for manifestors, but that might be where some of that cloudiness is, some of that, like, where things aren't making sense, where things aren't actually working for you. And so you can kind of take a step back and say, okay, where am I paying too much attention to, like, my environment, what's going on, or where have I just decided that I was going to do something because of something that I responded to or that somebody else said. So those are just some key things of like how to clear up like what might be so obvious or not obvious. And if you notice, like, okay, like me, if I've been forcing things to happen like for a while and I'm like, okay, let me just step back, like I will almost see right away like what I missed. Like, not that I missed anything, like I needed that experience and then like that step back, but like I will usually always see kind of like, oh, like this isn't even something that I want to do or like continue doing. Or like I'll see like just like I needed to shift where I was putting my energy or how I was approaching it, the perspective. Um, and that, I feel like that's for everyone. Like take that step back and say, okay, like let me step back into my natural energy, and just knowing like how that strategy is for you. So projectors, it's that waiting to respond, and be invited. And there's a lot of talk on this. But I would just say like a lot of the projector general well-being, I want to say well-being, is going to be based off of their ability to see where their guidance is needed, their ability to discern when to guide. And so like waiting to be invited is really just that ability to know when your guidance is welcomed, is needed. And that invitation is like, it could be energetic, it could be an actual invitation to share your guidance, to share your wisdom. But know that like the recognition or like the exchange of that is the most important thing for the projector. So if you're forcing yourself to guide where it's not welcomed, that's not going to feel good. If you're forcing yourself to kind of still be in energies that aren't honoring what you're providing, it's not going to feel good. So I would say for projectors, like pay attention to like where you're spending your time, who you're spending your time with, and how it feels, because this is the same with everyone, but specifically projectors, like if you're not feeling clear on like what's lighting you up in your life and what you want to continue, what you want to start new, what you want to complete, like find that clarity within yourself of like, who are the people that are really seeing me for who I am? Like, obviously you're seeing them for who they are, so you can tell when they understand what you bring to the table. But like making sure those environments are available to you, and then having that retreat to kind of understand like, okay, not everyone's gonna see me for the same all the time. And so how can I define success? And when we start answering those questions, a lot of the other things can just kind of float away or just don't seem as important. And that's where this clarity of like what you're committing to and what you're not committing to can really clear up for you, come in for you. And then, yeah, the reflector, just to be aware of like completion and new beginnings for reflectors. I really want you, I mean, if there's a reflector listening, please reach out to me. I want to meet you. Uh, but also, really pay attention to lunar cycles, but any other significant cycles in your life. So, if you're a female, you got your own cycle, any cycles in regards to like the seasons, cycles in your routine, cycles, like, because of the way you are designed, you are really influenced by cyclical energy. And so the lunar cycle, of course, is like, that's like the big like strategy for you. Like, wait a lunar cycle, that's where the clarity is going to drop in. So for reflectors, I often find that a lot of these big like the big completions and new beginnings are coinciding with the other cycles that you are in. And whether that's the lunar cycle or not, like it could be very well. I mean, the things happen in between there, of course, but paying attention to kind of like that cyclical energy and working with that in regards to completion. The moon phases are gonna really serve you for sure. But even in numerology, like thinking about the lunar cycle, I'm recording this right after the new moon. And so, we're in a 9 month. The next new moon is gonna be in a 1 month. And so thinking about that, like as a I keep wanting to say projector, as a reflector, that is very like potent. What are we ready to like call in and release, right? So the malleability there is huge, but also the intention for alchemization is necessary, right? I mean, with anyone, but especially for reflectors. Okay, so that was the 5 types and strategies. I don't know, I felt the need to bring up that just so you have kind of like that tool or like that reflection point of like, where can I gain clarity and set intentions? Like, how am I interacting with my reality? Am I forcing things? Am I able to take a step back? Am I able to take a different approach? How am I going to shift my energy so I can create more ease in my life? How can I shift my energy so things don't have to be a battle? How can I shift my energy so I am attracting and not forcing? Yeah. I think that's it. I feel pretty complete with this episode for what we talked about today. If you have any questions, I would love to hear from you. You can reach out to me on Instagram. The username is @theintuitionplayground, and you can email us as well. We will have everything linked below. But in other words, I will talk to you all next time on the Intuition Playground. And again, if you enjoyed this episode, feel free to take a screenshot. You can share that on social media. Don't forget to tag us and we will share you right back. And then, of course, if you want to leave a rating or review, we would love that. It really helps with the podcast visibility and just to increase the listeners. And if you send a screenshot of your review to our email, I will give you some intuition tips based off of your human design specifically. So get on that if you would like, but otherwise I will talk to you all next time on the Intuition Playground. Bye.